Five nutrition mistakes which are stopping you from getting lean or just stopping you from getting to the next level with your fat loss. Let's get straight into it. Number one is obviously not getting optimal protein, but more importantly, not having enough protein for breakfast. This is a big mistake. Even research shows now if you have under 30 grams for breakfast, you're going to have more cravings throughout the daytime and you're not going to be as satiated. Now, I see this pattern with clients as well. I would say a minimum of 30 grams of protein for breakfast. Even more is better. And that is then also going to stop you from chasing your tail in trying to hit your protein target, right? Because if you don't have enough for breakfast, then you've got to try and catch up lunchtime, dinner, and it's harder to get that amount in, or eating a massive amount of meat before bedtime, right? So simple examples, right, for protein. It doesn't have to be complicated. I always say just like leftover meat from the night before, for example. If you've got leftover beef mince, add that to some eggs in the morning, right? Keep it very, very simple. Yeah, worst case scenario, have a protein shake with some berries. Just get that 30 grams in minimum, and it really does help regulate your appetite and balance out your blood sugar levels, right? For most of the day, or at least the morning. So that's absolutely essential. And then what I would say on top of that as well is obviously with the protein intake, go above a gram per pound of body weight. If your goal is fat loss, you want to be aiming towards the top end. And on top of that, if you're not tracking, you're guessing. If you think you're hitting protein, but you're not quite sure, or you're someone who hits it in the week, this is what happens a lot is people say, yeah, I hit protein. And then when you shine a light on it on the weekends, they're grossly under eating protein. So even just tracking protein, it doesn't necessarily have to be every single calorie you eat, but just tracking how much protein you're eating is really, really valuable. And that way, what I would say then is to aim for at least a gram or 1.5 grams per pound of body weight towards the top end, or at least 1.25 grams per pound of your body weight, or in kilos, 2.3 to 3 grams per kilo of your body weight. So right up towards the top end. And you're not going to go wrong doing that, but you've got to track it. If you're not tracking it, you don't know what you're having, right? So protein is key, but definitely having a high protein breakfast, a bare minimum of 30 grams, ideally even higher than that, is going to set you up to win the day. Number two, is going too low on carbohydrates. Very common problem I see most people do. Now, obviously, some people in extreme cases, if they've got crazy immune conditions, yeah, okay, you should probably avoid things like gluten or whatever, right? But for most people, when you're looking to get shredded, you want to be having a decent amount of carbohydrates. So the reality is you don't want to go too extreme on one end with any macronutrient. So if you're having super high fat and super low carbohydrates, the reality is you're not going to get any benefits from having over, say, I don't know, let's say 40% of your calories coming from fat. Whereas when you're leaving a good amount for carbohydrates, it's really going to help you, especially as I've talked about before, starchy carbohydrates like your potato, your pumpkin, those kind of things, right? Rice as well. Rice is a good example of that as well, white rice. It's really, really going to help when you're looking to get leaner. It's going to help keep you satiated, right? And having fiber from vegetables and all that kind of stuff. It's definitely going to help with that. But the reason, and there's even research on this as well, right? There's no significant fat loss advantage between low carb versus moderate carb diets when protein is equated. So it goes to show that once calories and protein are equated for, it makes no difference really in fat loss, whether you're low carb, moderate carb, or even in some cases high carb, right? Really high carb. And again, when it comes to your performance, your recovery, your energy, those kind of things, if you're looking to get leaner, you need to be optimizing those things because you need to be maintaining strength, retaining muscle. And to do that requires you to perform quite well in the gym. And carbohydrates are definitely going to help with that, especially the starchy types that I just mentioned. So doing that can really backfire when you're cutting down to, or you go in carnivore, or you go in, keto to try and lose fat, when the reality is you don't need to do that, number one. Now, there's a very small percentage of people that they just do better when they just cut all carbs, or they just go really low, under 50 grams, under 100 grams of carbs. Under 100 grams would be classed as like a low carb diet, right? Under, say, 50 grams would be more kind of keto, generally, right? And under, say, 30 grams, that's going to be more carnivore. There's a very small minority of people who will do well doing that when they're looking to lose fat, but 90 or 95% of people, they're just going to do better with carbohydrates in there. The right types, though, not refined sugars, nothing processed, just like any type of food. You can eat ultra processed meat. In fact, that's some of the worst UPF, right? If you're eating things like, salami and sausages and processed meat, it's no different. Eating single ingredient carbohydrates, especially the ones I just mentioned, and, even non-starchy carbohydrates as well as classed as carbohydrates, this is going to be really good when you're looking to lose fat. On the flip side, you try try and cut them all out, number one, it's much harder to stay in a prolonged calorie deficit, right? Because it doesn't feel as easy to adhere to for the majority of people when you're doing low carbs or keto in particular. That's just the way it is. Humans, we want to be optimal with things, right? The body internally, it wants to be on form, right? So it's suboptimal. This is just facts. It's suboptimal for most people to have low carbs. The end, right? So moving on to number 3. Before I get to that as well, I'm going to give away the Shred Blueprint, which is going to show you exactly what you need to do nutrition-wise, trainer-wise, even through in a bonus ab guide. I had people who've used this, like I said before, they've used it from where I've given it to them on the podcast and YouTube, and they've had tremendous results in terms of trimming down fat, particularly off the waist. Also some muscle gain as well and strength gain. It's just incredible, and I'm going to give it away for free, the Shred Blueprint. All you got to do is click the link beneath in the show notes, and it's all yours, right? So if you're looking to shred fat right now, you got to get that. So number 3, the third nutrition mistake is kind of like touching on what I just mentioned there, but it's not prioritizing fiber. I know I've talked about this a lot now. And just to give people a bit more context as well, over the last few years, I'm going to hold my hands up. I went into the camp of fiber is not that important. Now, just because fiber is not an essential nutrient, it doesn't mean it's not important. Right? We need to stop looking at what you need to just survive and look at what we need to thrive, particularly when it comes to weight loss, balancing out your blood sugar levels. And, research does show some other benefits in terms of gut health, but that's very complex. I'm not going to really go down that rabbit hole. But when you don't prioritize fiber, even an intake of it depends on, I always go for a number for clients. For example, I always say, and it does depend on the client. Some people do better with low fiber, right? That's just the way it is. But most people do better having a moderate amount of fiber, at least a moderate amount. And I would say a target to hit is, say, at least 10 grams per 1,000 calories you're eating. So if you're eating 1,500 calories, having, say, 15 grams minimum, bare minimum, is really going to be a good thing. But more importantly, where are you getting that fiber, right? Because this is a big mistake. If you're looking to get shredded, where are you getting that fiber from? No, having protein bars, going back to UPF, that's not the same. Protein bar is full of chemicals. It's going to make you want to eat more. It's going to change your gut flora. And also, you're going to eat it real quick. So the energy you can eat a protein bar in like 2-3 bites, let's be honest. Whereas if you're having, your meat, and then you're having a big plate of non-starchy carbohydrates, for example, if we look at just fibrous carbohydrates, even just potatoes and stuff, right? You're going to have quite low calories, and you're going to have a plate full of fiber, which then is going to really help keep you satiated. We've got to look at the thermic effect of food. It's real. With protein, that's obviously number one when it comes to the thermic effect. Protein is so powerful in terms of how much energy it costs our body, calories it costs our body just to digest it, that actually around about 80% of the protein, that say you have 100 calories, roughly only about 70 to 80 of those calories you're actually going to absorb. The rest is going to be burnt whilst you're digesting it, really high thermic effect. And a similar thing with fiber. And we have got to look at the thermic effect of food. This is give or take, right? There's a lot of nuance here, but give or take is around about 5% of your total calories burnt, 5 to even 10% of your total calories burnt in the daytime is going to be from that thermic effect of food, right? So if you add this up over the space of a month, you're having a good amount of fiber from real food, like vegetables, for example, and some fruit like berries and stuff, but not too high sugar fruits. I wouldn't recommend if you're looking to get shredded. Not that fruit's bad, but don't overdo it. And then you're having protein on top of that. You're going to burn way more calories as your body digests that food just from eating those food. High thermic effect. And it just stops you from eating as much. So whenever I've got shredded, I would never go on bodybuild. I'd never go to a bodybuilding comp. I'm never going to do it again. But if I did, I'm never going to even consider eating carnivore or cutting carbs and fiber. Makes zero sense. I want to feel satiated. I want it to feel as easy as possible. And I want to feel good, right? So to do that, I'm going to have protein and a lot of fiber on my plate. And every meal you have, 90% of those calories need to be real food, at least on your plate, right? 90%. It's very hard to go wrong. In other words, single ingredient foods primarily. So fiber, just look at it this way, right? To summarize, more fullness with fewer calories, right? Very, very simple. Let's get on to the fourth one. So eating mindlessly. This is a big one, right? So a lot of people just overlook this. On your phone, scrolling whilst you're eating your meal, or even watching TV, which is even worse, right? Even research shows, right? Distracted eating leads to 10 to 25% higher calorie intake, right? There's loads of research on this now, and you'll know this yourself. When I used to binge eat, and the worst shape I was in was when I used to eat in front of the TV. Because you're just eating the food, you're getting that mouth pleasure, you're not paying attention as much. And it used to be ultra processed food as well, which obviously makes you overeat. But when you eat in front of the TV or even when you're on your phone, it's just a really bad habit, to be honest, because scroll on your phone, even, right? You're doing that. You're then distracted by what's on your phone and you're not paying attention to chewing your food. You're not paying attention to how fast you're eating. And if you're watching TV, you're entertained, you're watching something which is fun and exciting, you're not thinking about the food. Yes, you got the mouth pleasure or whatever based on what you're eating, but you're distracted and you're going to eat more. Very simple, right? So when you eat when you eat on your phone or Netflix or whatever, right? Just look at it as I'm going to eat at least 20% more, right? Without even realizing it. And you are. And if you're lying to yourself, you're absolutely full of crap, right? Let's just be honest. You're full of crap. If you look at over the space of even, say, 3 months, someone who's eating in front of the TV or scrolling on their phone versus someone who, this is what I would say, right? Sit down when you eat, when you can. I get it. Sometimes you're busy eating your meal in front of your desk, whatever. But for the most part, if you can make it a practice where it's like an allocated place where you sit, like my girlfriend and I, we sit at the table. When my girlfriend's not here, I sit at the table to eat my meal. I listen to a podcast. Don't get me wrong. I'm always listening to a podcast when I'm eating. So I'm not like just sitting there in silence, but I'm sitting on the table. I've got my knife and fork. Don't get me wrong, I'm guilty sometimes of standing up and eating when I'm in a rush, right? But for the most part, I'm sitting there, I'm making it a practice, and then I'm being more mindful from doing that. And even just eating on the couch without the TV on, I would say to avoid that and sit at a table. Eat somewhere where your brain, then you get the signal to your subconscious brain as well. This is where we eat food. Non-distracted. This is our focus, to eat our food mindfully and enjoy your meal as well. You actually enjoy the food more as well anyway when you're more mindful of the flavors and you're chewing it and everything else. So that's a big one that's overlooked. Mindless eating is just a massive problem for most people. And if you're doing it now, you're definitely going to eat more and you're definitely going to be held back with fat loss. The end, right? And you can deny it, but you will. Number 5, you're going to hate this one, right? But I talk about it all the time. Tracking. If you're not tracking, you're guessing. Now, I'm going to give you an example. They did a study, right? A big study as well. The average person say they eat 3 times per day, but they actually eat 8 times per day. So they're full of shit, right? Again, mindless and not paying attention. People forget about those little snacks, or even when they're cooking a meal and they're just eating it as they're cooking it, right? They just forget about that. We know it deep down, but we lie about it, right? So when you're tracking, you're aware of it. So tracking food is absolutely essential if you want to get to the next level, not forever, just as a tool, or a bare minimum, just tracking the protein that you eat. So just tracking the meat, the protein shakes, the eggs, so you're aware at least of how much protein you're having. But definitely way better just to track everything. And, people underestimate their calorie intake by 40% on average. Do you know how crazy that is? How much more? You're eating basically double the amount that you think you're eating, and then you're wondering why you're not losing fat, right? It's just common sense. But common sense isn't very common anymore, ladies and gents, right? So, when you're shining a light on something, you're going to have that awareness. What gets measured can get managed. Tracking, you're measuring. You're weighing your food ideally as well and doing it the right way, not just tapping anything in there. I know it's a ball ache, but you'll eat way less and you'll learn so much about portion control as well. This is another thing that's overlooked. It's like people always ask, I eat too many big portions, but they've never tracked. So they don't know what, for example, I remember the first time I weighed a sweet potato, for example, right? And I was blown away by how little it was. Having a raw sweet potato on the scale, 300 grams, it's actually not that big, right? Even 300 grams, it's not that big. So having that awareness by eye, and then when you don't track and you've tracked for enough times and you've done the reps, then you know by eye roughly how much you're having, and you naturally just start eating less and making better decisions over time, which is the night and day difference between you losing weight and being healthy and not, right? So tracking is key for most people. I always like to say, though, tracking food shouldn't be the destination. That's not where you want to end up, right? Getting an app out. No one wants to do that. Quite frankly, we all hate tracking most of the time. It's a ball ache, but it works as a tool. The destination should be intuitive eating, like where I and my clients are at, right? It's making automatic decisions. So it feels easy, almost like when you learn to drive a car, right? When you first start, you're all over the place. You're thinking about everything, right? And there's a word for that, right? There's like a stages of it. Isn't it unconscious incompetent. You're unconsciously incompetent when you start something like that. Then you get to the level of conscious incompetence. Then is it conscious competence and then unconscious competence? Then, right? There's 4 stages to you actually learning stuff, and it's the same goes with eating. I'm now the black belt level where I'm not perfect by any shape or form, right? Any way, shape or form. I overeat things like dark chocolate. I still have peanut butter like twice a week when I know I always eat. Let's say I'll always eat at least say 30% more peanut butter than I anticipate. So I'll say to myself, well, I'll have a tablespoon. I'll have, 2, for example, right? I have a few beers here and there. I don't drink much. Sometimes I might have some granola here and there, right? I'm not perfect, but for the most part, I'd say 95% of the time, 95% I'm eating real food, right? At least 95 actually. And it feels automatic and easy. And that's where I want you to get to, my friend. And that's where I get to my clients to, right? And speaking of clients, fat loss challenge, free fat loss challenge. We start on the 12th of May. You're going to lose 5 pounds in 14 days. You're going to work closely with me for free. All you've got to do is just enter the links in the show notes. I'll then get you the diet assessment. We'll get that done. We'll get you started, right? Don't miss out on this. I've only done this once before, and the results we had was absolutely insane. I forget how many pounds we lost altogether now. I lost count, and inches as well. It'll be life-changing for you even just doing this 14 days. Do not miss it, my friends. Opportunity to work closely with me for free. I mean, if you miss it, I just think you're a bit crazy. I'm just saying. So links in the show notes below. Enter. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the episode. Oh, by the way, like and comment as well, ladies and gents, please. On YouTube, give it a like. Comment below with your feedback. I really do appreciate feedback and input from everyone in my audience. The podcast is growing. It's getting the recognition it should be getting. We're changing lives just by getting this impactful content out there. And I want to make this better, and I want to get bigger guests on. So like, comment beneath. Even feel free to just drop me a DM on Instagram at Martin Silva. I love connecting with people in my audience as well. At Martin Silva Fitness on Instagram. Drop me a DM. I reply to all my DMs. I love connecting with people in my audience. And if you're old school, a lot of people not even on Instagram, drop me an email. Admin at optimizeyourbody.com. If you have any questions or any feedback, I'd love to hear it. But it's better if you can just comment below on YouTube, because number 1, more people are going to see it. Number 2, I can then reply on there and other people see it and get value from it. Cheers.